Welcome to Celebrity Controversy.
How far would you go to stay perfect? And more importantly, what would it cost you? In Hollywood, where your face is your fortune and youth is the only currency that matters, even the most powerful, most confident stars can crumble under a single wrinkle. What starts as one small tweak, just a little something to stay competitive, can spiral into an obsession so consuming it's almost impossible to escape. Behind the glamour, the red carpets, the magazine covers, lies a much harsher truth. Some of these celebrities didn't just change their faces, they lost themselves entirely. Beat of silence, then dramatic build. Today, we pull back the curtain on 15 celebrities who chased perfection and the devastating price they paid to get there. Linda Evangelista. In the 1990s, Linda Evangelista wasn't just a supermodel, she was the supermodel. The woman who once famously declared she wouldn't get out of bed for less than $10,000 a day. She redefined what beauty could be: fierce, unpredictable, otherworldly. But in 2015, Linda made a decision that would change her life forever. She underwent a procedure called cool sculpting, a non-surgical fat reduction treatment marketed as safe, effortless, and risk-free. It was supposed to be a simple fix. Instead, it became her nightmare. Linda developed a rare and catastrophic complication: paradoxical adipose hyperplasia. Instead of shrinking her fat cells, the procedure caused them to grow. For 5 long years, she hid from the world. No runway, no cameras, no interviews. The woman the entire fashion industry once revolved around became a prisoner in her own body. When she finally broke her silence in 2021, the world gasped. She described herself as brutally disfigured, her words, not ours. She said she no longer recognized herself in the mirror. But here's what makes Linda Evangelista remarkable. She came back. Not to reclaim her youth, not to pretend it didn't happen, but to stand in the truth of her experience and refuse to be ashamed of it. Closing. Inspirational. Her story became a warning shot heard around the world that even procedures labeled non-surgical carry consequences no glossy brochure will ever warn you about. Kenny Rogers. Close your eyes and picture Kenny Rogers in his prime. That silver beard, that knowing smile, the voice, deep, weathered, impossibly comforting, like a handshake from someone you trust completely. For over 60 years, Kenny Rogers wasn't just a country music legend, he was America's best friend. But fame has a shadow side. As the cameras got sharper and the television screens got bigger in the 1990s, every line, every wrinkle became something to be managed and eventually erased. Kenny underwent a facelift and eyelid surgery, and the results, well, weren't what anyone hoped for. The rugged, expressive face that generations had fallen in love with appeared pulled, tight, like someone had turned down the warmth on a fire that was never supposed to go out. Quiet, reflective. Kenny himself looked in the mirror and didn't fully recognize the man staring back. In interviews, he spoke about it with the same honesty he brought to every song, acknowledging the regret, but refusing to wallow in it. Because here's the truth about Kenny Rogers. His voice was never touched. His music was never diminished. And when he passed in March 2020, at the age of 81, it wasn't his face the world mourned. It was the gambler, the legend, the man. Lisa Rinna. Picture 1986. Lisa Rinna is 20 years old, sitting in a doctor's office and about to make a decision that will follow her for the next 4 decades. Inspired by the movie Beaches and the effortless Hollywood glamour she saw everywhere she looked, she asked for silicone lip injections. Fuller lips, a little edge, a signature look. And honestly, for years it worked.
But silicone doesn't age gracefully. Over time, the silicone hardened, the texture became irregular, the asymmetry grew impossible to hide. What was once her greatest asset had quietly become a source of physical pain and deep personal humiliation. In 2010, nearly 25 years after that fateful appointment, Lisa underwent a surgery to remove the damaged tissue. The procedure helped, but it couldn't fully restore what had been lost. And yet, even after all of that, Lisa continued seeking cosmetic enhancement, fillers, Botox, procedure after procedure. And fans noticed. Her expressions grew rigid, her face less her own. In recent years, she's reversed some of it. She's spoken openly, and in a world that rarely allows women to age on their own terms, there's something both heartbreaking and brave about that. Joan Van Ark. There was a time when Joan Van Ark was the definition of timeless elegance. As Val Ewing on Knots Landing, she captivated millions with soft, expressive eyes, a natural warmth that translated perfectly through a camera lens, and an effortless grace that simply couldn't be manufactured. But Hollywood has never been kind to women who age, and by the early 1990s, that pressure had quietly begun to take hold. What began as a subtle rhinoplasty, a minor refinement, barely noticeable, gradually evolved into a cycle of procedures, facelifts, eyelid surgery, skin treatments. The cumulative effect, over many years, altered the features that audiences had loved. Her once fluid expressions appeared more constrained, the natural warmth harder to read. As high-definition television became the standard, every change was amplified, and the public noticed. Joan Van Ark's story isn't really about vanity. It's about survival in an industry that discards women the moment they show any sign of being human. And that is a story worth telling. Cayetana Fitzjames Stewart, the 18th Duchess of Alba. Imagine holding over 40 noble titles. Imagine living in centuries-old palaces surrounded by priceless art. Imagine being one of the most powerful, most titled aristocrats in all of modern history. That was Cayetana Fitzjames Stewart, the 18th Duchess of Alba. But even with all that power, all that wealth, all that history behind her, she couldn't outrun the mirror. By the 1980s, concerns about aging had led her into a quiet but escalating cycle of cosmetic procedures, facelifts, injectable treatments, the kind of thing done behind closed palace doors. And yet, in 2011, at the age of 85, she married a man 24 years her younger, not quietly, not apologetically, publicly, joyfully, without a single care for what anyone thought. She passed away in 2014, and whatever anyone said about her face, no one, not one person, could question the extraordinary force of her spirit. LaToya Jackson. Growing up Jackson meant growing up in the spotlight so intense it could burn. LaToya Jackson spent decades trying to carve her own identity out of the longest shadow in pop music history, that of her brother Michael. In the late 1980s, she underwent rhinoplasty, and over the following years, additional procedures followed, nasal refinements, facial enhancements, each one shifting her face further from its natural A-line. The more her face changed, the more the comparisons to Michael resurfaced. It was a narrative she could never quite escape, and one that media outlets were never willing to let go of. Quietly powerful. But here's what got lost in all of that speculation. LaToya Jackson is a survivor of public scrutiny, of private trauma, of an industry that consumed her family whole. In recent years, she shifted the conversation towards her own story on her own terms, and that, frankly, deserves a standing ovation. Goldie Hawn. If laughter had a face in Hollywood, it would be Goldie Hawn's. That giggle, those eyes, the effortless joy that radiated off every single performance. For 5 decades, Goldie Hawn didn't just entertain people, she lit them up. But Hollywood doesn't stay gentle forever. Over the years, industry insiders and eye-eagled observers began noting subtle changes in Goldie's appearance. A smoother texture here, a more structured contour there. Reports pointed to possible Botox and fillers, though Goldie herself has remained largely private about the specifics. And honestly, context matters. Lighting changes, makeup evolves. The natural aging process doesn't follow a script. Not everything is a procedure. Warmly conclusive. What never changed, not even slightly, was the spirit, the warmth, the humanity. While Goldie continues to act and inspire, she's poured enormous energy into her Mind Up Foundation, bringing mental health programs to children around the world. A face is temporary. That kind of legacy, that lasts forever. Dolly Parton. Now let's talk about the woman who looked the entire cosmetic surgery conversation dead in the eye and winked. Dolly Parton.